Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Super Paranormal Chronicles. Tonight, I am got the pleasure to speak to Al Cooley. Al is the host of the Ghost in the Valley podcast, and he's also an author of the book Spencer's Ghost, The Guardian, which is about personal experiences, but we'll get onto that later. Al, good evening, my friend.
Good evening, and thank you for having me on your show.
Well, both of us have been talking, and I know that I'm repaying the favour, and we're both going to be on each other's. So all the listeners have got something to look forward to in the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just been talking about it off air, but I'll just mention it quickly again. The US has been having some really sucky weather, even more so than where I am in Canada. So has that affected you much?
Oh yeah, well, first of all, since I never had COVID before, so my wife and I, we contacted COVID right before Thanksgiving, and this thing has lingered on, man. I'm telling you what, I've never had it. I don't want it again. It was actually absolutely terrible. Just got my sense of smell back, and so after dealing with that, and then all of a sudden, then we get this, like you had kindly said, sucky weather. That's when the kindly. So it's like not letting up, there was no school for this whole week, and it looks like it's canceled for us this week, and maybe next week we'll have school. But it's
Wow.
temperature's been hovering around 0 to minuses at night, no higher than the teens. I think I got up in the single digits this past weekend, and the snow is unbelievable. So and we haven't seen this for a few years, but we'll get through it.
Oh, yeah. As everybody does. I know a friend of mine sent me some pictures from a place in Russia, in Siberia, and they'd got between 10 and 40-foot snowdrifts.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And it's going across the country just like that's
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I'm in Canada. We get used to it. We often get 2 or 3 feet a year, so whatever.
Yeah, used to it, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so the host of Ghost in the Valley, and you're also an author. But if you'd like, let's go back to the very beginning of how did your paranormal story begin?
Well, it actually began when story. That's where my book comes into play. Because it's written about a true story growing up in a haunted house. Up until I'm like 12 years old, I've never experienced anything paranormal or believed in ghosts or goblins or anything like that. So moving into this house was an experience for me. From day one, and so I would say at 12 years old, when we pull up the driveway, and I seen her in a window, in the upstairs window, and I was the only one that seen her. And eventually, my sister my brother, through the next 5 years. But yeah, that was the first day. I would say 12 years of age. So I knew it was real then. But now we're going back to 1967. So I'm showing my age a little bit. So like I had said on so many podcasts, like they always ask me how come it took you so long to write this book? Took you over 50 years to write this book. And I said, well, really, who do you go to? Who do I talk to say I seen a ghost? So back then, you don't have internet or YouTube or Google or any of that. So all you had was your encyclopedias. And if you mentioned anything about a ghost, that's why I kept it quiet for so long, because, you get labeled crazy and goofy and out there, So now I really don't care. It's like, got the story out, and it is unbelievable, but I'm not one of these people that where, some people, a ghost or spirit follows them their whole life. So you move this house or this house or this house, it's with you. No, mine was like a one and done. So, those 5 years were traumatic for me, because you're going through your, 12 years old to 16, and everything we witnessed in that house, and then it just stays with you, you know. So when I wrote the book a couple of years ago, it kind of come back to me because you don't forget about that stuff. Or my sister would call and say, remember this put in the book?" You know, and I'm like, "Oh, well, that's a great idea. Yeah. I forgot about that." You know, so I'm
It
working on book
really,
2 right
oh,
now. So
sorry.
book 2 is going to be starting off where this last one just left off at, you know, and then but basically going into the more of the newer years, you know. So it's only gonna be a 2-book series,
Right.
and so because I really don't want to go on and just make crap up, you know. So I just it's real life experiences, and I've had a lot of good responses for it, you know. So it's like, who do I sell this book to, you know? Because I'm 12 years old, going on 16, going to 16 years of age, and so Amazon says, like, you know, who's your target audience? I'm like, I don't know. I was probably say 12 years old or 16, but you know, it's surprisingly that I get so much responses from the older generation that, you know, because you're going back to a time, like I said, you know, that there was no internet and I'm going back to experiences that you see today on a lot of your TV shows, you know. So it's the same stuff. I mean, excuse me, it doesn't matter if it's in Canada or United States or New Zealand. This stuff happens coast to coast everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because I've always been interested in the paranormal for as long as I can remember. And when I was a kid, because obviously we're roughly the same age.
Mm.
Again, like you said, there was no internet, and you know, it was all books or magazines. And there was a magazine in the UK called The Unexplained. And yeah, as most kids do when they get a subscription, they probably get the first 5 or 6, maybe the first 10, and then they go, okay, I'm getting bored with this and don't buy anymore. And I was on one of the Facebook pages and somebody posted a picture of the first cover. And I went, oh my God. I remember that from as a kid. And I've now found the internet database where you can actually download them all. So I'm reliving my childhood through these magazines.
Hmm.
And
Isn't that great that you could do that? You know.
that's it. And another point to what you were saying, when we were children, if you mentioned that you saw ghosts, spirits, fairies, whatever, you were basically told to either be quiet and shut up, or you were deemed to be kind of like losing your marbles a little bit. But in this day and age, like we go to Comic Con conventions as an investigation team. We have a booth, and the amount of people that come up to us, oh, let me tell you about the time when,
Yeah.
and it happens all that, and it's becoming more sociable, you know, to tell these stories now than what it was from when we were young.
Oh yeah. The internet has grown so big over the last. Oh, I mean, I got into podcasting 8 years ago, and uh, it was like maybe 350,000 podcasts out there. I think we're out there if you're looking at the records. Now there's over like 50 million. So it's, I mean, if you can't find what you're looking for on a podcast, then there's something wrong, because there's a podcast for everything out there. And
Yeah,
that's what I love about it, you know, because the only thing we had as growing up, and probably you as well, was like Art Bell, Coast to Coast Radio. And, you know, he was labeled goofy for having all these people on it seeing werewolves or Bigfoot or, you know, way back then.
yeah,
So, and now you can go on any place on YouTube and uh, pick up podcasts on cooking or working on a car, or, and you know, so to me, my interest has always been, in you know, the paranormal or like music, and so I, you know, I can go there now. Like my talk radio would be all these podcasts, you know, like your show, my show, and it's great that we can go on there and have guests come on, and I'm sure our guest, yours and mine, can relate to a lot of different people out there. You know what I'm saying?
that's that's it. And one thing that I find, you can talk to 50 different people that have had a spooky experience, so to speak, but no two stories are the same. It's all down to personal experience for what's happened. Yeah, a lot of people can say, "Oh yeah, I had an experience when I was 5, when I was 6, when I was 7," but every experience is completely different.
Right,
Never two are the same.
right. So growing up in that house, like I said, it was to me it was traumatic. And I'll just give you a little bit. The day we were moving out, keep in mind now, my mom and dad, they never seen anything. They didn't believe anything. I'm looking back on how I think they did, but they held that stiff upper lip, as you would say, and not uh, show you're scared or any of that. And I remember moving out. Now I called the ghost in the house Alice. I just named her, and it turns out there was more than one in the house over those 5 years. Anyway, the one I'm talking about is Alice, and we're moving out. Well, let me go back a little bit because first I only seen her like maybe twice in those 5 years. It doesn't mean that's something hasn't happened every day. You always get the banging and the movements and the noises and the footsteps every day. But it's actually seeing her, like I said, when we pulled up the driveway, I seen her in the upper window. So when we first went into the house, first time I'm seeing this house, our furniture's not there yet. So it's like an older home with wooden floors. So when you talk, you get that echo. So I felt like that was really cool, man. I could say something and it was echoing. So I
Yeah.
says, hello, hello. And it was like, hello. And then this girl answers back, hello. I'm like, okay, that's my sister because she's about the same age as me. She must have come upstairs and not messing with me. So I'm checking all the rooms out. There's nobody up there but me. And I says, hello. And she says, hello, back at me again. And so I'm assuming, oh, this must be this girl. And so I went downstairs. My sister, I'm the only one upstairs. I go downstairs and they're all downstairs. And I said, there's a voice upstairs. And actually, I get grounded again for making up stories. So my dad says, go down. Well, at the time, he was my mom's boyfriend. He says, go downstairs and if you can change the light bulbs in a basement. I said, okay. It's like one of these basements, it's like, because it's such an old home. There's like dirt floors and coal furnace and uh, very old. And I couldn't reach the light. It was so high up. So I got me a cinder block, stand on the cinder block to turn this light. And I'm falling backwards, straight back off the cinder block, right? And his hand comes up and grabs from like the back of your thigh and just like kind of in my butt end and just kind of pushes me back up on the block. I thought, Tommy, I call him Tommy, that's my mom's boyfriend. I says, Tommy, I says, thank you. And I looked down, there's nobody there.
Wow.
So now this is all the first day. And now should I run back upstairs? So all this stuff went on over the next 5 years. Nothing really bad happened to me or my sister or my brother, but I would say my two uncles, yes, very much so. And it was the last day we're moving out, and keep in mind, I was so terrified when we lived there. And then moving out now, I'm kind of sad because it's hard to explain that you got a connection with a spirit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm kind of sad we're leaving, right? And the whole week before we moved out, there was not a single bit of activity. It just stopped, like nothing. And now I'm like, kind of, okay, really? You're gonna play me like this because this whole time you're messing with me. Now you're not gonna respond. So I'm just laying in bed, right? It was the night before we moved out, and I just about to doze off, and I see her at the bottom of my bed, of like a full apparition hologram of her. And I didn't say anything. She didn't say anything. We just stared at each other like for 5 minutes, and she just kind of like just faded out. That was it. I if I could look back now and say, who are you? Who are you?
Yeah.
how'd you die, or what's your name? I could have had all these questions I love to ask now, but then we just had to stare down like looking. And so the next day we were moving out of the house, and the landlord came to give my mother back her deposit for a security deposit, whatever it was. And I remember the landlord telling my mother, "Oh, he says, I'm going to be sad to see you guys leave. You guys are great tenants of this home." My mom says, "Oh, we enjoyed it. The kids made up these crazy stories that the house was haunted, but we enjoyed ourselves." And I'll never forget this, man. The landlord looked right at my mother and says, "But it is haunted." I'm surprised you lasted this long.
Wow.
So my mom's like, after driving away, she says, he's about as crazy as you are. You still don't get it,
Wow.
do you, Mom? So
Yeah.
he said, no, a young girl died in a home. So now that I'm doing book 2, my wife and I were going to the library to get some information on this home, because their house burnt down in 2005. So there's really no information on this house, man. I'm going to all the places I can go to try to get in, but for some reason there's no information on this home. So I went to the library. I'm going through the old phone books and the archives of the properties, and I found the house in the phone book. And so I'm back to 1928 right now. So, and the person that lived in the house, her name was Alice.
Wow.
Yeah, I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
So I told my wife, "That's really weird, man." I named the ghost her Alice.
That is spooky.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So we're doing some background information now, and I would love to go. And now once I got the years and the people that lived in this house. I want to investigate and go and like a little bit on them, if what I can get off of their history. You know, uh, so it is kind of fun doing that. You're digging up some old history of a home that no longer exists.
yeah.
Now I heard through on some reliable sources that the house burnt down in 2005. I also heard that a person died in the house during that fire. So I'm just surprised I can't get the information I need. And so I'm gonna do some more digging. That's my goal this year, is to.
Yeah.
Uh,
You, you'd think that kind of information would be in the local papers. You'd think,
hmm And that's
especially
what I'm.
that
That's what
recent.
I'm trying to get. I'm trying to get that exact date when the house
Yeah.
burnt down, and then once that happens, I can go back to the archives of the newspapers, our local newspaper, and I'm sure it would have been in there. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm positive.
So, have you been able to find out anything particular about the girl?
No, I wish I could, because that was the only information he threw out to my mother. And since then, he's passed on. And so many people in this book that I reference this book are no longer with us.
Yeah.
Uh, my mom and dad are both gone, and my sister and my brother and they can remember, but not so much my brother, because he's 10 years younger than I am. So he'd have been like 2 moving in and 8 when we moved out. So he knew some stuff. He did witness some stuff, but because I had told them back then, because I had witnessed him talking to, there was nobody in the room and he's talking to somebody. And so I told him back, well, after he left the room, I said, leave my brother alone, you know. And they said, I don't think they ever messed with him after that. But my sister, oh yeah, she seen that's where we had a difference, because I said Alice was around 10 years old, 10 to 12, about the same age as me at the time, 10 to 12, that age range. Now, the one she seen in front of her door, she said she was about 21, 20, early 20s. She would guess. I said, no, that's not right. That's not right. She's 10. So I would say, you got to think this through, man. She's not. Here it turns out that there was more. There was like, I think there was 6 ghosts in the house,
Wow.
6 spirits, and so naturally the one girl was around 21 years old. So my sister's, yeah, she's seen who she's seen, I seen who I seen, but we're looking at 2 different people. You know, you
Right.
keep in mind right now, people out there listening, you say if you're saying, "Oh, I don't know about that," but keep in mind right now, if you're laying in bed, okay, you go to bed tonight, keep this in mind. You're laying there and you hear footsteps coming up your stairs. I mean, actual footsteps coming up your steps, but there's nobody there. And then you hear the heavy footsteps walking across the hallway to your room, pounding on your wall like somebody with a fist pounding on your wall, and the pictures fall off your wall. And you get this, breathing in your ear.
Yeah.
Now, you don't tell me that's a car light going down the street. And this is what I've been told by my parents. That's just a car going down the street. That's the light you see in the cross. That's the car light. That pounding you're hearing, that's the wood out, the tree branch outside hitting your wall. That footsteps is the pipes in the basement banging. I'm thinking to myself, bull crap.
Yeah.
I'm not, believe me, I'm trying to rule this stuff out. I agree with him. That it could be a car light, it could be a branch, but not when something's pounding on your wall.
100%.
When somebody's walking up your steps, and that's so. I was never so. I shouldn't say. I felt bad for my sister. I was never so happy that the night she was scared senseless was when these footsteps came up, right? And all I seen, because I looked up at the last minute, and I seen like a light go past my doorway. That's when she started, when she was screaming, because that's when she's seen her.
Right.
So now I'm saying, yes, I got me an ally, because now my sister now sees her,
Yeah.
or when my friend came over and he didn't, back then how you're young kids and your buddy comes over and he's going to spend that night. You're going to watch some spooky movies on TV that night. My mom and dad went all dancing, and I said, yeah, I have a friend come over. I'll order some pizza and pop. And I said, okay. He comes over. He already knew about some of the stories I was telling, and he says, nothing's still happening, is there? I says, no, actually, it's been pretty quiet this past week or so. And he goes, oh, good. I probably should have never said that, because we're sitting there watching TV. Now, keep in mind that the back door is behind us, and the couch kind of set like in the middle of the living room. So it was one of those old doors where you hear, the screen door. And that opened up first, and then you heard like the footsteps coming up from behind you. We both turned around, and there's nothing there. And then it felt like there's like a presence, an ice cold breeze that went through the front of us and out the back. Then the footsteps back to the door doing the sound again, and the door shutting. My buddy got up, went over, called his mother, says, pick me up. I need to come home. And he never came back. He never came back. So, he's still my friend to this day. I mean, I just talked to him recently. And, yeah, so, stuff like that you just don't forget, and say that's a air conditioning doing that. We didn't have air conditioning, we had fan window air. So where's the ice cold breeze coming from through your body? How do you explain the footsteps? How do you explain the door opening and closing by itself? So, and that was normal to us, but that's why my sister and I, we just talked about that the other day. We didn't have friends come over to the house because we're afraid that what's going to happen to them. And then you're going to lose a friend, or, because things are, like I say, things were different back then. And God forbid if you went to church and you mentioned anything like that happened to your pastor, you're going to burn in hell, because you don't talk about
for
that.
sure.
We don't talk about that. So why not?
Exactly.
So, but like I say, who do you go? Well, my number one advocate was my grandmother, and that's in my book. She was a person, my go-to. She believed everything. She was right there for me. So she felt it. She felt it in the house. She was one of these people that had these remedies from passed down to generations for,
Right, right.
so yeah, she was my go-to. And I said, I can't believe you're my mother's mother.
But it's interesting though, because I was at an investigation before Christmas, and it's a a place that they're raising money to have it to put back to how it used to look 100 years ago. And the ground floor is almost finished. It's got all the old worldy furniture and all this kind of stuff, but the first floor is actually still quite derelict. They're just raising money to be able to rebuild it. And we was up there, me and a colleague, and I literally felt like something grabbed my hand. But I was kind of stood in a window light that's on a slanted roof, so you've got kind of like the window cut out. And my first thought was, it's a cobweb. But then my immediate reaction was, hang on a minute, my left hand is hanging out of my pant pocket and my elbow was out. So if it had been any cobweb, my head, my shoulder, my arm would have taken the cobweb.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely wasn't a cobweb, but only I felt it. And it literally felt like somebody got hold of my hand. You talk to other people and they go, well, you imagined it, or it was this, it was that. And you go, no, it felt like somebody held my hand.
And it's really so hard to explain. I mean,
Yeah,
how do you explain that? Uh, even in today's technology with spirit boxes and EVPs and uh, everything you have out there, the grid locks on the infrared, and you have all that information, and say you record it, and people still don't believe you.
yeah,
So it's so I I would say a long time ago I stopped worrying about if people believe me or not. Uh, I know what I saw. I know what happened. I still consider that house very. There was some evil in that house. Uh, and I could never believe that would be Alice, because I had nothing but good things happen to me. I was told numerous times, like I say, I always claim I have a guardian angel, because so many times I've been warned, don't go, don't do that, because every time I did, something happened, so I had like that feeling, like, when you feel like somebody's watching you,
yeah,
uh, and it's those feelings that you can't really explain, so I thought, do I have guests? I'm on my podcast. I have guests come on, and they may have a similar experience or something with Bigfoot, or they'll say, there's something, you're not going to believe this. And I said, well, it's your time, it's your story, and how can I say I don't believe you when you could say the same thing about my stories? So, and that was a thing back then, man. My one of my best friends was, he didn't believe in all that. He didn't believe in ghosts or spirits or hauntings, but he had a connection with uh, UFOs and telepathy, telepathy
yeah,
with these aliens. And that's, and I was like, yeah, okay, oh, okay, But how can I actually do that? But he could say the same thing about me. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So, because back then, we're going back, 50 some years ago, 60 years ago, that what he's telling me then is happening today. You watch any TV show with aliens or UFOs, what he was saying then about the black eyed kids and the UFOs, and his story then is the same as it is today. And he's no longer with us. I wish he was. Man, I'd love to have him on my show and reminisce on some of this stuff, and uh, so, yeah, it's, and that house led me into. I had my own video production company for about 15 years, and I decided to make a documentary on Ghost in the Valley, hence my podcast, Ghost in the Valley. So I did this documentary based on true ghost stories in Ohio and Pennsylvania. So, like I said, yeah, we didn't have the internet I could use to utilize to get ghost stories. So I actually spent money to go in like Cleveland, Ohio, and Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati, and Columbus. All these big cities. I go even to the smaller towns to their review papers and ask for true ghost stories. Oh my God, that I get like the stories come out the wazoo, and so so it led me into that documentary. So when my son-in-law was telling me about the mid 2000s, that I would say about 2015, he was talking about podcasts. I said I had no idea what he's talking about. And I never really caught on to about 2017, and I started listening to him. I was like, okay, I like this. Maybe I can do my own podcast on paranormal, and so that's how that started out. So I said, well, I'm going to name the podcast. Oh, I like that Ghost in the Valley with my documentary. So that's how I went with that, and which then led me into why don't I write this book? Because it's my daughter would always say, and son, Dad, I think you heard these stories like 100 times. And I said, yeah, you probably did. So that's yes, where it all began. Well, it began back at 12 years of age, and hasn't let up since. So I've always had this fascination, and like on my show, I'm sure on your show as well. Uh, you learn a lot. You learn on different things in the paranormal. I'd like a fae, or uh, I knew about the black-eyed kids. I didn't know about the white-eyed kids. So now I'm getting to know a little deeper into that. Uh, it's such a big field, and I love when people come on and they're really when they're really timid at first, like they don't really want to talk about it because they've been told they're crazy their whole life,
Yeah,
you know. And so no, you feel free. There's people out there who's going to relate to what you are saying. Period. They're
and
going to
that's it.
relate to what you're
Yeah,
saying.
that's it. And it's interesting what you say because some of the people that I've interviewed, I was talking to somebody about fairies, and she was saying that one night she actually vomited soil coming out of her mouth after having something attach itself to her back. And the way she describes it, she said, "Yeah, if there was nobody else there, because there was two witnesses, she literally was saying, I would never have told anybody because people would think I was crazy." And I interviewed a guy who lives in Mexico, Brazil, that neck of the woods, and his girlfriend at the time got this pendant that was allegedly haunted or possessed or whatever. And when she put it on, she then flipped over into a crab position and then proceeded to walk up a wall backwards. And like when you hear these kind of stories, you kind of jaw just goes like, oh,
Right.
yeah. And
Hmm.
it's fascinating that these people are now open to telling all these stories rather than keeping them all secret because it
Well, like
makes your job and my job a lot easier.
yeah, there's so many different avenues you can go to now.
Yeah,
Like I went to a paranormal conference last year. Excuse me, a Paracon, uh, and it was so cool that I got to meet a lot of my guests that were on my show. I didn't know a few I knew they were going to be there, but the other ones I did not. And so I had like 8 people that had been on my show. I finally got to meet. That was so exciting for me,
yeah.
and I'm sure it was like she said it was so exciting for to them. A couple of people told me. So I says, "This is so cool, that I finally put a person's right there in front of me that was to the voice." And I could have probably spent a week there. And then driving home from the Paracon, it was in Kentucky. So I was driving back to Ohio, and I can't remember her name, but they run the Kentucky Ghost Hunters out of Owens. I don't want to make Owensburg. I don't want to mess it up, but uh, it's an auction house, and I think it's Owensboro in Kentucky. And she says, "You're going to be driving right by our place. Why don't you stop by and check out our museum, haunted museum?" I was thinking to myself, why not? So that took me back to almost my house I grew up. Because I could sense I could sense the energy in that home of a spirit. And well, at first, I think I kind of let her down at first because she says, "Do you feel anything right now?" I says, "No, I don't feel nothing." So if it's there, it's gone or something. I don't know. I don't feel nothing. But then we went to the other room. I'm like, oh my goodness, oh, I feel it. Oh wow, it's so hard to, and you can't explain that. And as
Yeah.
soon as I felt that it's like a big thick oak door just opened up and closed by itself. And it's so hard to I don't know. You can't really put into words. I mean, things that happen that you witness. And the gentleman that was sitting next to me, his name is Wayne or Dwayne. He was sitting next to me, and he had his arm up by his head, and I just noticed his arm started bleeding. We've been sitting there for quite a while talking, and his arm just started bleeding. He didn't pick at it or nothing, and it looked like a little pinhole, and this blood just coming out of this little pinhole in his arm. And I'm like, "Hey, Dwayne, your arm's bleeding, man." He says, "Oh, that happens all the time. It happens in here." So I don't know. It's like, and she has haunted dolls in there, and I always say, just be very careful on what you. I remember when my priest in our church was telling me, and I was telling him about way back when I was making my documentary. I just threw it out at him, got his opinion on it. And I thought he was going to say, "No, don't do that. You're going to burn in hell." Like I heard growing up. He was into it, man. He was like,
Wow.
"Well, yeah, well, okay, all right." And then he says, "If I can give you any advice when you start your investigating these stories," I said, "What's that?" He says, "Be very careful because there's a thin line between something that's ornery and a demon. Just be very careful." And and he was dead dog serious, man. Just looking me straight in the eye, like, be careful out there, and maybe do like a protection prayer before you go in, and do them
Yeah.
before you leave. Because how are you saying? It doesn't matter if it's a haunted doll, if it's a pendulum, or Ouija board. Uh, if the session or the house just had a séance in it, and they never closed out any of those sessions, you're going to leave a portal open. And this is coming from our priest, you know. And I'm thinking, man, if you talked about like this every Sunday, I'd be in charge. I would never miss a Sunday. So
100%. But it's true what you say, because as a paranormal investigator myself, and I'm part of a team, if you call us, we literally have a questionnaire that we will go through, and we'll cover everything about how many people in your family, who's experienced what rooms, and then we even go into some of the more sensitive questions. Are you on any medication? Has there been any mental health in the family? And that's not derogatory towards that individual, but I've got a paramedic background. I was a paramedic for 13 years.
mhm.
So I know what can happen to people when they're going through going through a crisis. So I can then depict if it is of a paranormal nature or if it's something else. And we go through all these kind of questions and stuff like that before we even think about it being paranormal. You've got noises in your loft, in your attic. Well, do you have a rodent problem? Have you got
Mhm.
loose tiles and birds are getting? So we go through all that.
Yeah, you want to debunk it, right?
Exactly. But and then you've got the other kind of people that I say just go out for shits and giggles, that want to go out and want to be scared. Yeah, and the boyfriend girlfriend scenario. Oh, let's go here. We'll have a fun. We'll get scared, and they are completely separate to how we do it. We want to be taken seriously, and I think to have people like that that want to genuinely either help the person or to find out what's really going on. That is helping the industry, if you like, tenfold.
Well, I think a lot of that problem is you watch too many people watching Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures, and I'm automatically thinking of a demon. They're automatically thinking of Linda Blair or the Exorcist. That's what they want. And they know that. That's why they add all this stuff to their TV shows to sell that show. Personally, me and all these years, 60 years of paranormal activity, I can say maybe came across something demonic once, and that I don't deal with. I won't even attempt to deal with it. I've heard a few people on a few podcasts talk about, well, you can do it yourself. Anybody can get rid of well, you can maybe smudge a home or cleanse a home. I mean, to actually move a spirit on, to me, I'm not qualified to do that. Or
Yeah, agreed.
I kind of leave that to, like, it's the clergy or whoever that you're going to bring in. You're saying, like, you want to debunk everything. I totally agree with that, because I always said paranormal is like fishing. You may go out there to that fishing hole, and one day you get a lot of bites, and the rest of the week you didn't get nothing.
Yeah.
So, and they pick and choose who they want to connect with. I found that out, but that's why the Catholic Church is, when they do send an exorcism team, that's what they do. They debunk to make sure of mental health, of schizophrenia, or you want to roll that stuff out.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, I hate to say it, like 9 times out of 10, it's not haunted. It's not paranormal. I kind of agree with my parents. Well, the pipes have been known to bang on when they kick in. If you got water heat, it gurgles and surges in your walls and your pipes. I know those sounds. Or the wind outside, maybe going through a rafter or through a crawl space in your home. Stuff you don't think about.
Yeah.
The whistling through the cracks of your windows. I mean, there's so many things that could be. Once you eliminate that, then all of a sudden their paranormal stops, their activity stops.
Yeah.
But then you get those cases where it is actually a lot of energy in that house from a spirit. Now, a lot of your Native Americans will say that it's not the person that's haunted; it's the ground of the structure. That's why they take the ground so seriously, and building things on because it's sacred to them. The ground is sacred to them. Earth, Mother Earth, the water, the plants, anything that grows, it has a spirit, and so I kind of have opened up a lot to a lot of things that go in spiritualism, and between that and Christianity, and that's why I don't really like to talk about religion on the show, because everybody has their own beliefs. I've always been a firm believer that if you're moving a spirit on, he's either going to heaven or to hell. Catholics believe in the purgatory, so that little bit of time between your death, where you're going to go. You're in a Baptist church, or Methodist church, Protestant church, they believe when you die, bam, you're going right over. If you're going to heaven, that's where you're going. There is no, I'm going to think about it.
Yeah.
So there's a big, I don't think any of us know until we pass on, and what are you moving on to? Well, some people believe you just going into another realm. What is that realm? Well, I don't know. I like to think it's heaven, but I've had a lot of people on my show that says no, so.
Yeah. As long as it's got bacon, I'm happy. I don't
bacon,
care.
Yeah. As long as that bacon's crispy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, Al, we are unfortunately coming to the end, and you have got one of those voices that your perfect voice for radio, because it's so soothing. So my wife's going to love listening to this podcast when I release it, because she's going to go, "Oh man, I could listen to that guy all night." So, when are you expecting book 2 to come out?
I'm looking at 2027, maybe next year. I'm really excited about this one. There was a chapter they left out of book one, and I have a lot of trains in the book one. Well, because we hopped a train and we went the wrong direction, right? So we end up in New York. But so I had this one, the one story on the train track. I thought it was phenomenal, but they left that one out. I said, "So why do that?" Well, because excuse me, because there's too many train stories in there. So it starts out with that one. I'm excited about the second one because then it takes you into 2025. Sitting on the front porch and then and thinking back on a couple of these stories. And thinking back, I call her Grandma Pearl in my book, and my grandmother, and my friend Joseph, who I didn't mention this, but I still play in the band, and in my book, we're in a high school band, and still got the same guys we're still playing today. Uh, so Joseph, who's in my book, we were just talking about this the other day, so he's still around. So he starts out my second chapter in the book, so. Uh, it's really real quick for you off here. When I did my book signing in Warren, Ohio, the book Spencer's Ghost was basically all took place in Warren, Ohio. When I did my book signing, I did it at the Ghost Walk at Halloween last year, right?
Awesome.
And at the same spot that I'm sitting at, hey, there's a log cabin that's in my book. There's a courthouse square that's in my book. And it was so cool that these people coming up and talking to me know the area.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, so I think that sold a lot in this area because they can relate to a lot of the stories.
Yeah.
Even this one cop was sitting there and he kind of like gave me this evil look, the whole time. Like, I told my wife, I think he's going to come over and kick my ass because he got that look on his face. And then he walks up to me and I was like, "How you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm okay." He says, "About your book." I said, "Yeah, I was over there. That stuff happens over there." So
wow.
here he wants to explain his story to me. Right?
Yeah.
So that's how people are. You don't know who, you can't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly.
So I'm judging him as being thinking I'm nuts. Here he had a lot of ghost stories to tell me.
Yeah.
Of that area.
And it's funny because I was talking to a author friend. She lives in Tennessee, Sin Schrader Hill. Don't know if you know her.
Oh yeah, she's been on my show a couple of times.
Yeah.
She's the one I met in Kentucky. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And she's an absolute sweetheart. I said, and she asked me because I'd been a paramedic if I had any stories. So I sent her a couple of stories, and she said, "Oh, by the way, both your stories are in my book." It's like,
oh yeah. I don't have them here. I just had her book over here.
Yeah.
On the counter, but yeah, I wrote the foreword to her book, the one book. And I was so thrilled that when I got there, she was one of the people speaking at the panel on the in the convention, right? And I want to sit back a ways and just listen to her. And here she spotted me, like in the audience, the Cooley is in the house. I'm like, oh my God, she called me out. But she's so sweet, man. She's a sweet person. I met her husband, and yeah, they're all so nice. And you get that little circle now that you're
exactly.
Sin Schrader Hill and
Tommy Cullen, all that kind of crowd.
Yeah. So many, yeah.
So, what apart from the book, have you got anything else on the agenda?
Not really. I plan on a couple Paracons this year that I've been wanting to go to. I want to go to the Mothman Festival. I've been wanting to get down there and see that. I haven't made it yet, so this might be my first year. I've had some guests on my show from Berkshire's, Massachusetts. I want to go up there and meet the people that were in the UFOs over the Berkshires. It's on Netflix, on Unsolved Mysteries, and so I want to go meet the people who were on my show from Netflix.
Yeah.
So I got some plans where I want to go, where I want to see. I'm really excited getting the second book done and getting it out there. My podcast is doing very well. It's on every other Monday. Ghost in the Valley podcast. have my website is authoralcooley.com. Where you can get all my past episodes of Ghost in the Valley, and also pick up my book there as well. And so yeah, I got some stuff happening, and it's gonna be a good year.
Yeah, I can tell that you're a podcaster, because that was going to be my next question. Where can people find you? And
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, that's right. We'll just erase that bit.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Al, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to be a guest on yours in a couple of weeks' time. But for now, thank you for your time, sir. I hope that snow goes away pretty soon so you can have some warmer weather.
Thank you very much, Lee, and thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to having you on mine. I really do.
Yeah, and I'm going to go onto your website, and I'm definitely going to order Ghost in the Valley.
Alrighty.
To add to my collection of paranormal books. Al, have a great evening, my friend. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.